Alright, salutations interweb. This will probably be the most important video I ever make. In this video, I will attempt to illustrate to you how the Roman Catholic Church owns us all, owns the world, how America is a corporation, the state that you live in is a corporation, and how you're a corporation too. And by the end, hopefully you will walk away with a better comprehension of why the world operates the way that it does. Hopefully you stay tuned until the end, because all of my subsequent videos on Freemasonry and the Knights Templar and like everything else all stem from what we're about to discuss. First, for those of you who don't know me, my name is Benjamin Davis Woodbury. I joined the Marine Corps Infantry right after 9/11. I was in Cuba Company 3rd Battalion 5th Marines and was involved in Operation Iraqi Freedom, Operation Phantom Fury, and Operation Enduring Freedom. Then I became a Freemason. I got my 32nd degree out of the Everett Valley Scottish Rite. Now, I don't want to dwell too much on the fall of Rome, but since the West is the spiritual successor of Rome, it's kind of important that we at least touch on it a little bit. Rome fell in 476, which marks the beginning of the Middle Ages. This is all off Wikipedia, right? Rome slowly fell under the political control of the papacy in the late 8th century, and it became the capital of the Papal States, which lasted until 1870. Remember that date. In 800, Pope Leo III crowned Charlemagne the Emperor of the Holy Roman Empire, which means the Pope sanctions the authority of kings and emperors, right? The Pope is the man. Look up the Papal Tiara. It's a triple crown. Kings have a crown, the emperor has a double crown, but the Pope has a triple crown. It's a triple crown with a globe and a cross on top of it, signifying his spiritual and temporal authority here on earth. Everything is symbolic, and everything has meaning. When a pope is crowned, and I don't want to attempt the Latin, but in English or near enough, it says, "Receive the tiara, adorned with 3 crowns, and know that thou art father of princes and kings, ruler of the world, vicar of Christ on earth, to whom all honor and glory forever and ever." They don't wear the tiara in public anymore, probably because you might start to ask questions and wonder why this guy's got a solid gold hat on his head, right? They want to seem as unassuming as possible. And while historians would say that the Middle Ages started with the fall of Rome, I would contend that it began with the signing of the Magna Carta in 1215. Remember Prince John from Robin Hood, right? Well, he eventually became a king, and this guy was a dirtbag. He would besiege all of his vassals if he didn't get what he wanted until they consented, right? And they just all got fed up, and eventually all of his vassals came to besiege him, and they made him sign a document. That's the Magna Carta. It established the liberties for the common man. Serfs and regular folk could actually own things and not just work the land for the feudal lord, right? And this is when guilds started to form and the average common man could finally get ahead. This was the beginning of liberty for most, because in less than 20 years, the Catholic Church began their Inquisition in 1213. With their dungeons and chains and steel girders and monstrous torture devices. People, finally being free, wanted to go their own way. Back then, they wanted to do their own thing. But the Roman Catholic Church, they countered with the rack, the pendulum. Before saws were ever used to cut wood, they were used on human beings. They would hang you upside down and saw you from anus to sternum. The breast ripper, the knee splitter, thumb screws, heated metal pincers, the heretic's fork, the lead sprinkler, Scold's bridle, hanging cages, iron maidens, the pair of anguish, Catherine's wheel, Judas's cradle, and more. All of you watching, myself, everybody, would not be safe. And do not think for a moment, just because you are a believer of Christ, that you would be safe either. These devices were used on the accused of gossip, of adultery, slander, perjury, blasphemy, theft, profanity, anything. But the goal of torture wasn't to punish you, but to acquire a confession. If you did it, tell us you did it, and if you didn't, tell us who did. Right? You would rat out everyone. You would rat out your friends and family. You'd fucking even tell on your dog, yeah, this guy stole my sandwich. You wish that you had more people in your mind that you could go and tell on and rat out. Think on how much mankind has suffered under the Roman Catholic Church then. And folks are still suffering now, today. The Inquisition still exists. The last person killed was in 1831. And though it's changed names a few times, right, it's currently called the Congregation for the Doctrine of the Faith. But I say bullshit by any other name is still raunchy. This empire, and it is an empire with the Pope and his tiara, right, it's morphed over the years, as I will attempt to show you. But first, we have to talk about papal bulls. Okay? A papal bull is a public decree, letters portent, or a charter issued by the Pope. Then they seal it away in their vaults, and what's on those papal bulls, it goes, it stands. Well, why? Because in law, when you make a claim of right, that, hey, these are mine, right? I have the highest claim of right because I brought these here with me, right? They're in my hand. Possession is 9/10 of the law. I brought them here. The evidence is there, so they're mine. Unless someone comes to refute that claim, it stands. So, in 1302, can you see that? Well, I'll put the names and the dates in the description of the video, right? But in 1302, Pope Boniface VIII issued the papal bull Unam Sanctam. Unam means one. Sanctum, sanctum sanctorum, sanctum, holy, holiest of holies, holy. Holy One. He issued the papal bull, Holy One. He created the first express trust. Okay, so now in order to explain what's going on here, I have to explain to you what a trust is. Okay, a trust is an arrangement between a person, the trustee, and he holds property as its normal owner for the good of one or more beneficiaries. Like in the Crusades, you got a best buddy, right? You're going off to war. You make him the trustee of your property, and when you come back, he gives it back to you, right? That's a trust. You're the beneficiary of the trust, and he gives it back to you, okay? With Unam Sanctam, they decree all the souls and the people of the world are theirs. Remember the claim of right. The papal bull says, furthermore, we declare, we proclaim, we define it is absolutely necessary for the salvation of every human creature be subject to the Roman pontiff. His reasoning? Since the soul is governed by the ruler of the spiritual, the Roman pontiff is therefore both governor of body and soul, because he is the vicar of Christ on earth. Nobody can challenge his authority, only God. Okay. Remember the claim of right. So in their eyes, they own everybody. They own all the souls in the name of God. That's their claim. And unless somebody goes to refute that claim, it stands. Okay. And now perhaps it gives you a greater understanding of why our founding fathers wanted a separation from church and state, to get away from the crown and the cross. And no one can challenge it, right? You can't go into the vaults of the Vatican, and even if you did, you don't know Latin. You don't know how to speak or read Latin, so you wouldn't even know what you had in your hand, even if you had it or found it, right? And I think that they've purposely dumbed us down over the years. All of our founding fathers knew Latin. Latin is the basis of all of our law, which is why now you have to go to court and have somebody represent you, pretend to be you, because you're not capable of handling your own affairs. And as you will see by virtue of a birth certificate, that you are registered to the state, and that's your trust. But more on that later. And so this whole idea of them claiming all the souls, that's worthy and scorn of contempt in and of itself, but we shouldn't be angry with all of them for their past shit. What we should be angry with is all those people who are perpetuating this system today, still. All the families who control the Vatican and the monarchies with them. They are all in collusion with the Vatican as their corporate head. Look up the Holy See. All right. The Holy See. The Holy See is a throne. It's set upon a dais, and it has a president. And it's the president of Vatican City. It's an independent city-state. The word see, S-E-E, right, comes from the Latin seed, S-E-D-E. S-E-D-E. Right? And a seed, which in its original or proper sense denotes the seat or chair of a bishop. And it is the symbol of his authority. So, my brethren, and I'm speaking to my Freemason friends now, when you're in your Lodge of Perfection in the Scottish Rite, and they talk about the see that resides in Charleston, in Virginia, you don't even know what you're saying. It basically means that the jurisdiction of the Vatican is over you. So why would Freemasons, who wanted separation from church and state, be talking about a see in their rhetoric? In 1454, they gave us the papal bull Romanus Pontifex. Romanus Pontifex. Roman pontiff, right? That's what that means. Pope Nicholas V created the first testamentary trust. It's a legal entity that manages the assets of a deceased person in accordance with the instruction of a person's will. And if you don't have a will, well, that's too fucking bad. The state just claims your estate. So now they've claimed all the souls and all your property. Not only this, but Romanus Pontifex confirmed Portugal's dominion over all the lands south of Cape Bojador in northwestern Africa, west of the Sahara, along with encouraging the seizure of lands of the Turks and other non-Christians, and repeated the earlier bull's permission for the enslavement of such people. So if you're an indigenous person and you don't have a will and you die, guess what? The Roman Catholic Church gets all your stuff. That's what was going on, 40 years before Columbus, during the Age of Discovery. So when you hate on the founding fathers for having slaves, never forget that they were just British colonials. They were a child of the parent state, Britain. And Britain condoned slavery because the Roman Catholic Church condoned slavery. Right? And In 1481, 11 years before Columbus, Pope Sixtus IV passed the papal bull Aeterni Regis. Regis means king. Eternity, right? Eternity, eternal kings forever, in perpetual remembrance. And so in this papal bull, Aeterni Regis, it reiterates a treaty with Castile, but that's not important to what we're talking about, and it also grants Portugal all further territorial acquisition made by Christian powers in Africa and the East Indies. So the rest of Africa and beyond is now okay for slavery. Go ahead and fetch them. Right? In 1493, just 1 year after Columbus, right, Pope Alexander VI passed the papal bull Inter Caetera. Inter Caetera, which means among other works. That's what that means. Granting Isabella and Ferdinand, the sovereigns of Castile at the time, all lands 100 leagues west and south of the Azores in South America, right? And that's where you start to hear about, the conquistadors. And we all know what the conquistadors did to those poor people. All in the name of God. They claim those souls. They can do whatever they want with them. And if they die, they get their shit. Okay. Now, in 1666, during the Great Plague of London, Parliament enacted the Cestui Que Vie Act. 1666, oof, that's a rough year, right? We got the Cestui Que Vie. Everybody was dying in rapid numbers. So the state, London, taking a cue from the Vatican and what they've been doing throughout history, right, subrogated the rights of men and women. Subrogation means a legal doctrine whereby one person is entitled to enforce the rights of another for one's own benefit. Essentially, London took the custody of everybody and their property into a trust. The state became the trustee, holding all titles of the people and their property until a living flesh and blood party came to reclaim those titles. This is relevant today because if you were born and you're registered with your birth certificate, that's a trust. And the state becomes the trustee for your estate while you are the acting beneficiary. You are a walking corporation. Did you consent to that at all? No. Free consent is said to be when it is not caused by coercion, undue influence, fraud, misrepresentation, or mistake. If a contract made by any of the said reasons at the option of the aggrieved party, it could be treated as a void contract. How can they do this? How did they make everybody a corporation? Well, because America became a corporation. Look up U.S. Code Title 28, Chapter 3002, Section 15, Item A. And I got this from the Cornell's website. It says that the United States means a federal corporation. That's item A. Well, how did America become a corporation? Because with the Act of 1871, the District of Columbia was incorporated. And all of the subsequent states became corporations thereafter. My home state, Washington, became a corporation in 1889, less than 20 years. So America became a corporation, and then all the states, and then when we declared bankruptcy March 9th, 1933, we went back to the governance of Britain because they have de jure claim on America, right? King Charles chartered the colonies. Okay, and so in 35, when we got the Social Security Act, and you got a little number attached to your name, you became a corporation. You became a serialized good. Remember me saying at the beginning of this video that Rome slowly fell under the control of the papacy and it became the capital of the papal states until 1870? 1870, the Act of 1871, when America incorporated the District of Columbia. Who discovered America? Columbus, District of Columbia. I'm pretty certain that the District of Columbia is the Roman Catholic Church's piece of our pie. So now think about the Columbia Broadcasting Station, CBS, and how its symbol is the all-seeing eye. Think about Columbia Pictures, how there's a woman robed in white, which denotes purity, wrapped in a sash of blue, which denotes fidelity, and she's holding a beacon of light in her hand, and she's on a step pyramid. Everything is symbolic. And don't forget Columbus Day, right? The banker's holiday. It's very important that we have a celebration for Columbus discovering America to remind us. You are a corporation. Proof of that is in your face all the time. It's on your legal documentation, it's on your birth certificate, it's on your ID, your driver's license, it's on your social security card, and it's on your mail. Your name is in all capital letters. That's not proper grammar. If you go on any writing program and you try typing in all caps, like everything is underlined. It's like, no, you're making a mistake here. It's not grammatically correct. And so, what? We're supposed to believe that America, with all of its great power, right, can't write proper nouns. They don't know how to write proper nouns on your identification documents. No. They could put your name in uppercase, lowercase letters, but they don't. Why? Because of something called Capitis, Deminutio. Now there's three types of Capitis Deminutio. There's Maxima, Media, and Minima. Right? And we have Capitis Deminutio Maxima, used in the loss of liberty, citizenship, and family, being made a slave or a prisoner of war. You are a slave. You're owned by the Vatican. You are a prisoner of war. Look at the yellow fringe around our American flag. Haven't you seen the gold fringe around the American flag on TV when the politicians are out there talking or in a courtroom, right? Isn't the American flag supposed to be red, white, and blue? Not red, white, blue, and gold, right? Gold fringe is indicative of commercial law, otherwise known as British Maritime Law, and in the US it's called the Uniform Commercial Code. It only appears in places where Britain and her masters have authority, in government, and you won't find it in public schools because it's a public school. Like the government doesn't have any jurisdictional authority over a public school, unless somebody bought the wrong flag and put it up there, right? But you won't find the fringe on any other place except in government or in the courts. Everything that happens in court is emblematic of the sacrament of penance. You go to court to confess your sins and receive your penance, your punishment. Tell us what you did. If you didn't do it, tell us who did. And you do this in front of a man dressed in a black gown. And he comes and he seats. He goes and sits in his chair, a raised chair on a dais, right? He's essentially a bishop. Little does he know. This is so much bigger than the political parties that you side with or Trump. And those only serve as something for you to focus your rage on. To, boo and hiss and fucking throw your cabbage at, you know what I mean? Right? And it detracts from the real target who's perpetrating all of it. Right? The monarchs of Europe and the Vatican, who rules them all, because the Vatican sanctions all the Western monarchies. And mankind will never truly be free unless we topple these institutions. Yes, America, we are being played. And the only reason I know any of this, or even cared to find out, is because I joined after 9/11, and I was a pawn in the game.